At 11:47 a.m. on May 29, 1943, Captain James Hartwell climbed into the cockpit of his B-7 at RAF Allenbury, watching the ground crew load the last belt of .50 caliber ammunition into the modified bomber's 17th gun position. 26 years old, 42 combat missions, 0 experience in what he was about to fly. The YB-40 weighed 4,000 lbs, more than any flying fortress he'd ever touched. In the 3 months before May, the 8th Air Force had lost 173 B-17s over Europe. Without long-range fighter escorts, German interceptors massacred bomber formations on the return leg from targets deep in the Reich. Focke-Wulf 190s attacked from 12 Halsey High, where B-17 nose guns couldn't track fast enough. Measurement 109s dove through formations, picking off stragglers who fell behind. Crews called it the Gauntlet. Half didn't make 25 missions. The solution seemed obvious. If fighters couldn't escort bombers all the way to Germany and back, turn a bomber into a fighter. Army Air Force's engineers stripped everything, from a B-7F that didn't shoot. Bombs gone. Bombardier Station converted to a twin .50 caliber chin turret. Second dorsal turret installed behind the radio room. Single waist guns replaced with twin mounts. Cheat guns added to the forward fuselage. Ammunition capacity tripled to 11,275 rounds. Additional armor plating welded to crew positions. 16 .50 caliber machine guns on one aircraft. They called it the YB-40, the Flying Destroyer. Douglas Aircraft in Tulsa completed 12 conversions by March. The 92nd Bombardment Group at Allenbury received them in early May. Colonel William Reed selected 7 crews to fly the first combat test. Hartwell got aircraft 42 Phi 738. His crew called it Hedgehog. The weight made everything wrong. Standard B-7Fs climbed to 20,000 FT in 25 minutes. The YB-40 needed 48. The control yoke felt different, heavier. The aircraft commander who flown it at right field, told Hartwell the center of gravity sat wrong with all that ammunition behind the bomb bay. But the guns. Hartwell had never seen firepower like this on a bomber. The chin turret alone could shred a Focke-Wulf before it closed to firing range. Every approach vector covered, every angle of attack met with overlapping fields of fire. The mission brief was simple. Escort the main formation to Saint-Nazaire. Attack the submarine pens. 7 YB-40s positioned in the most vulnerable spots. Low squadron, trail element, anywhere German fighters loved to hunt. Hartwell started the engines at 1:25 p.m. All 4 Wright Cyclones ran smooth. The control tower cleared them for takeoff at 150. Hedgehog rolled down the runway with the 168 other B-7s following. Target time, 400 p.m. If you want to see how Hartwell's Flying Destroyer performed against the Luftwaffe, please hit that like button. Every like helps us share these forgotten innovations. And please subscribe. Back to Hartwell. The formation reached the French coast at 3:30. Flak bursts dotted the sky over Guernsey. Radio chatter confirmed German fighters, scrambling from airfields near Rennes. Hartwell's flight engineer reported fuel consumption tracking higher than briefed. The YB-40 burned more gas, climbing to altitude. Sandair appeared through broken clouds at 4:02 p.m. The main formation dropped their bombs and turned for home. Empty B-7Fs climbed faster, accelerated quicker. Hartwell pushed the throttles forward. Hedgehog started falling behind. The standard B-Avs pulled away at 160 SPI. Hartwell had the throttles at maximum continuous power. Hedgehog managed 148. His flight engineer climbed down from the top turret. Technical Sergeant Paul Morrison, 31 years old. 200 hours maintaining B-17s before the YB-40 conversion. He checked the engine instruments and shook his head. Number 3 cylinder head temperature climbing into the red. The extra weight and drag made the Cyclones work harder than they were designed for. Morrison throttled back number 3 engine before it overheated. Hedgehog slowed to 142 must. The main formation was 3 Ms. The main ahead now, 4 mm. Hartwell could see the other 6 YB-40s struggling at the rear of their assigned groups, every one of them falling behind. The radio operator called from the waist. Staff Sergeant Frank Delaney had spotted contrails at 4 as high. German fighters climbing to intercept. Focke-Wulf 190s from Jog, Gishwater, 2 based at Vannes. 6 aircraft, maybe 8. They were hunting stragglers. Hartwell keyed the intercom. All gunners tracked targets. The chin turret gunner reported good visibility. The ball turret rotated smoothly. Both waist gunners confirmed their twin mounts were loaded and tracking. The first Focke-Wulf dove at 5R, range 1,100 YD. The tail gunner opened fire at 800. Tracer rounds walked toward the diving fighter. The German pilot broke left and climbed away without firing. The second attack came from 11 Suck High, 2 Focke-Wulfs in trail formation. The chin turret gunner tracked the lead aircraft and fired a 4SE second in burst. 50 caliber rounds stitched across. The FW-190's engine cowling. Black smoke poured from the fighter. It rolled inverted and dove toward the channel. Delaney confirmed the kill from the waist position. The second Wolf broke off the attack. For 6 minutes, the YB-40's firepower worked exactly as designed. 3 more German fighters approached. 3 more attacks broke off early. The overlapping fields of fire from 16 guns created a wall of lead no pilot wanted to penetrate, but Hedgehog was still slowing down. The main formation was 6 mi ahead now. Then 7. Hartwell could barely see the bomber stream against the afternoon sky. Morrison reported fuel state. They had burned 800 grams more than brief during the climb in combat. At this power setting, they had 90 minutes to reach Alsenbury. The formation would be on the ground in 70. Another pair of Focke-Wulfs appeared at 2 Cour. These pilots didn't break off. They'd figured out the YB-40 couldn't keep up, couldn't run. The German fighters circled at a distance, waiting for the bomber to fall farther behind, waiting for the right moment to attack from multiple vectors simultaneously. Hartwell pushed the throttles forward again. Number 3 engine temperature climbed back into the red. Morrison watched the gauge and said nothing. The escort bomber with 16 guns had become the target it was supposed to protect. The attack came at 4:43 p.m. 3 Focke-Wulfs from different vectors, high right, low left, dead ahead, at 12 what level. Hartwell couldn't evade. The YB-40 turned like a freight train with all that weight. He held course in altitude. His gunners opened fire simultaneously. The chin turret tracked the frontal attack. The top turret swung right. The ball turret rotated left. Both waist gunners fired through opposite windows. Spent brass cascaded into the fuselage. The aircraft shook from the combined recoil of 8 guns firing at once. The lead Focke-Wulf's canopy shattered. The fighter rolled right and fell away, trailing smoke. The high attacker broke off early. The low attacker pressed his run and fired a 2-con burst. 20mm cannon rounds punched through Hedgehog's right wing. 1 hydraulic line severed. The waist gunner reported fluid sprang across the window. Delaney called out damage. Right landing gear, hydraulic system failed. They'd have to manually crank the gear down for landing if they made it back. Morrison checked the fuel again. 72 minutes to Allenbury at current power setting. The formation was 8 mi ahead and pulling away. They were alone over occupied France with German fighters circling. The radio crackled. Another YB-40 crew from the 305th Bomb Group. Captain Richard Hayes, flying aircraft, 42-5741. His gunship had also fallen behind. 2 YB-40s now separated from the formation, both struggling to maintain airspeed, both burning fuel faster than briefed. Hayes suggested they form up together. Combined defensive fire from 32 guns might keep the Germans at bay. Hartwell agreed. Hayes descended from 21,000 FT to match Hedgehog's, altitude at 19,500. The Focke-Wulfs circled wider now, 4 visible, maybe 6. They weren't attacking 2 gunships flying in loose formation, but they weren't leaving either. At 5:07 p.m., Hartwell crossed the French coast outbound. The channel stretched gray and empty below. 53 mi to the English coast. 41 minutes flying time at their current ground speed. Number 3 engine was running hot. Morrison had pulled the power back twice already. They couldn't maintain altitude much longer. Hedgehog descended through 19,000 FT and 18,800, 18,600. Hayes radioed that his number 2 engine oil pressure was dropping. He throttled it back to prevent seizure. His YB-40 slowed to 138 MAP. Both aircraft were struggling, both crews watching fuel gauges tick toward empty, both hoping the German fighters wouldn't follow them over water. At 5:22 p.m., two Messmid 109s appeared at 6 Gun High. They'd follow the stragglers to the channel. The tail gunners called out the intercept, range 400 yards, and, closing, the fighters dove through 18,000 FT. Their cannons opened fire at 800 yards. Hartwell couldn't climb, couldn't accelerate, couldn't turn hard enough to throw off their aim. The YB-40 had become a flying target with empty sky all around. The tail gunner fired first. Staff Sergeant Raymond Koch, 24 years old, former ski shooting champion from Cleveland. He'd never tracked targets moving this fast. The lead measures 109 close to 600 YD. Koch walked his tracers across empty sky. The German pilot jinked left, right, dove, 20th degree. His wingman followed. Both fighters opened fire at 400 WWII cannon shells tore through Hedgehog's tail section. One round exploded in the horizontal stabilizer. Another punched through the fuselage. 2 FT behind Koch's position. The aircraft shuddered. Hartwell felt the controls go mushy. Morrison climbed back to check damage. The elevator cables were intact, but the trim tab mechanism was jammed. Hartwell would have to fight the control yoke all the way to England. The meshes pulled up for another pass. Hayes's YB-40 opened fire with all dorsal guns. The combined firepower from both gunships filled the sky with tracers. The German fighters broke left and circled back to altitude. At 5:31 p.m., 4 Republic P-47 Thunderbolts appeared from the northeast. Long-range escort fighters returning from a sweep over Belgium. They'd heard the radio calls about stragglers under attack. The Thunderbolts dove at the meshers. The German pilot saw them coming and turned east toward France. The P-47s didn't pursue. They formed up on both YB-40s and waggled their wings. Escort to the English coast. Hartwell checked his fuel. 37 minutes remaining at current power setting. 29 Misi Tau landfall. They'd make it barely, but the concept was broken. He could see it now. The YB-40 worked perfectly as a gun platform. 1650s could shred any fighter that got close. The chin turret alone had changed the equation for frontal attacks. The weight made it useless. After the standard B-7s dropped their bombs, they climbed faster and flew higher. The YB-40 still carried 11,000 rounds of ammunition, 4,000 extra pounds dragging them down, making them slower, making them targets instead of protectors. Hayes radioed at 5:47. His number 2 engine had seized. Oil pressure 0. He'd feathered the propeller. His YB-40 descended through 15,000 FT on 3 engines. Morrison calculated the numbers. Hayes wouldn't make Alconbury, maybe not even England. His fuel consumption on 3 engines was too high. The English coast appeared at 5:53 p.m. Hayes aimed for the first airfield he could find. RAF Manston on the Kent Peninsula. He called the tower and declared an emergency. They cleared him for immediate landing. Hartwell watched Hayes's YB-40 drop away toward the emergency field. 1 gunship limping home on 3 engines, another damaged and barely controllable. Both aircraft would require major repairs before flying again. At 6:18 p.m., Hedgehog touched down at Allenbury. Hartwell cranked the landing gear down manually. The right main gear locked with 15 seconds to spare before touchdown. Ground crews counted 16 bullet holes in the fuselage, 1 severed hydraulic line, 1 jammed trim tab, 1 damaged horizontal stabilizer. Colonel Reed was waiting at the hard stand. He wanted Hartwell's assessment immediately. The first combat test of the YB-40 concept. The flying destroyer that was supposed to protect bomber formations all the way to Germany and back. Hartwell shut down the engines and climbed out. His flight suit was soaked with sweat. His hands still shook from fighting the controls for 90 minutes. He looked at Reed and said 3 words that would end the program. It can't keep up. Reed ordered 7 more missions. Maybe the first test was an anomaly. Maybe different tactics would work. Maybe positioning the YB-40s differently in the formation would solve the speed problem. The second mission launched on June 15th against Lama. 4 YB-40s flew. All 4 fell behind after the bomb drop. The third mission on June 22nd targeted the IG Farben synthetic rubber plant at Holes. 11 YB-40s dispatched. 1 aircraft lost to flak and fighters. The remaining 10 struggled home hours after the main formation landed. Engineers at Abbott's Ripton Depot tried modifications. They adjusted the waste gun feeds, changed ammunition loading procedures, moved weight forward to fix the center of gravity. Nothing worked. The fundamental problem remained. A B-7F carrying bombs weighed 65,000 lb at takeoff. After dropping bombs, it weighed 48,000. The YB-40 weighed 68,000 at takeoff. After combat, it still weighed 64,000. 4,000 lbs of guns and ammunition that couldn't be dropped. On June 28th, 6 YB-40s attacked Sandaire again. They claimed 1 German fighter destroyed. All 6 fell behind the formation on the return leg. One crew reported they had been alone over France for 43 minutes. Alone meant vulnerable. The aircraft designed to protect bombers needed protection itself. The 8th Air Force compiles statistics after non-combat missions. 48 sorties flown, 5 confirmed German fighter kills, 2 probable, 1 YB-40 lost. Every single aircraft had fallen behind its formation after the bomb drop. Average separations distance 7 meters. Average time alone over enemy territory, 38 minutes. Luftwaffe Fighter Chief Adolf Gand reviewed the intelligence reports. German pilots had figured out the YB-40s quickly. The heavily armed bombers looked different. Extra turret visible from any angle. No bomb bay doors. They flew in the most vulnerable positions. After the formation dropped bombs, the YB-40s became stragglers. German fighters focused attacks on stragglers. Gallen's assessment was brutal. The YB-40 kills were insignificant, not worth the cost. His pilots would rather attack the flying destroyers than avoid them. Easy targets that couldn't run. On July 29th, the last 2 YB-40s flew their final combat mission. Target? U-boat yards at Kiel. Both aircraft fell behind. Both required fighter escort to reach England. Both landed at emergency fields short of their home base. In August, General Karl Spaatz canceled the program. The 12 surviving YB-40s returned to the United States in November. Most became gunnery trainers. 4 was stripped and converted back to standard bombers. The concept died after 3 months of combat testing. The Army Air Forces had spent $469,000 per aircraft on the conversions. 12 aircraft, $5.6 million for a weapon system that made bombers more vulnerable instead of safer. But one piece of the YB-40 survived, one innovation that worked perfectly. The modification that would save thousands of bomber crews before the war ended. Engineers at Wright Field studied the combat reports carefully. They noticed something. Every YB-40 that engaged fighters from the front stopped the attack. The chin turret changed everything. 250 caliber guns firing forward with a clear field of fire. No convergence problems, no blind. Spots at 12 WWII. That turret design went to Boeing immediately. The Bendix chin turret from the YB-40 program entered production in September 1943. Boeing designated it the Bendix Model A. 2 50 caliber Browning M2 machine guns. Remote control operation from the bombardier position. 300 rounds per gun. Electrically powered traverse and elevation. Douglas Aircraft installed the turret on the last 86 B-7 FDL aircraft coming off the production line. These bombers deployed to England in October. Crews called it the answer to 12 WWII attacks. Before the chin turret, German fighters attacked B-7 formations from dead ahead. The bombardier's position had 2 cheek guns mounted on the sides of the nose. Limited traverse, limited field of fire. Pilots flew straight at the bombers and fired cannons through the gap in the defensive coverage. Focke-Wulf 190s killed more B-7s with frontal attacks than any other method. The chin turret eliminated the gap, full forward coverage. The bombardier tracked, attacking fighters through a simple gun sight. Press the firing button. 250 caliber guns converged at 400 YD. German pilots who'd grown comfortable with head-on passes suddenly faced concentrated fire they couldn't avoid. Combat reports from November showed the change. The 91st Bomb Group flew B-7Fs with chin turrets on a mission to Gelsenkirchen. 12 frontal attacks. 10 broke off early. The other 2 pressed through and took hits. 1 Focke confirmed destroyed. 0 bombers lost to frontal attacks. Boeing incorporated the Chin turret into the B-7G production model. First aircraft rolled off the line in December 1943. The G model became the definitive flying fortress. Boeing plants in Seattle and Wichita, Douglas in Long Beach and Tulsa, Vega in Burbank. All three manufacturers building B-17Gs with the standardized Chin turret. Production ramped fast, 50 aircraft per month in January 1944, 120 per month by March, 230 per month by June. The factories delivered 8,680 B-7Gs before. Production ended in April 1945. Every single aircraft carried the Chin turret that started on the failed YB-40 program. The 303rd Bomb Group transitioned to B-17Gs in February 1944. Their loss rate from frontal attacks dropped from 12% to 3%. The 379th Bomb Group reported similar numbers, 11% to 4%. The 384th tracked their data carefully. Before Chin turrets, 43 bombers lost to frontal attacks in 6 months. After Chin turrets, 14 lost in 12 months. 8th Air Force statisticians calculated the overall impact. The Chin turret reduced bomber losses to frontal attacks by 71%. Across all groups, all missions, all theaters. By WWII Day, the B-7G equipped 26 heavy bombardment groups in Europe, 4 groups in Italy, 2 in the Pacific, 32 groups total. Each group flew 48 aircraft on standard missions. That's 1,536 B-7Gs in combat simultaneously. The YB-40 program lasted 3 months, flew 48 combat sorties, claimed 5 German fighters, cost $5.6 million, failed completely as an escort concept. But the Chin turret from those 12 failed gunships flew on 8,680 flying fortresses, protected crews on more than 290,000 combat sorties, saved an estimated 2,300 bomber crews who would have died to frontal attacks without it. The flying destroyer died. Its innovation lived. The Chin turret wasn't the only YB-40 innovation that survived. Engineers studying the combat reports noticed 2 other modifications that solved real problems: the staggered waist gun positions on standard B-7Fs. Both waist gunners stood directly across from each other. They fought for space, bumped into each other during attacks from beam angles, limited each other's field of fire. Combat footage showed waist gunners physically blocking each other while tracking fast-moving targets. The YB-40 had moved the right waist gun position forward by 30 ASs in. Staggered configuration. Each gunner had room to move, room to swing their guns through full traverse. No more collisions during combat. Boeing incorporated staggered waist. Positions into the B-7G. Waist gunners reported 40% better field of fire, fewer jams from rushed reloading, better coordination during simultaneous attacks from both sides. The 94th Bomb Group documented their experience. Before staggered positions, average engagement time 12 seconds before gunners interfered with each other, after 27 seconds of continuous tracking. The third improvement came from analyzing the YB-40 tail gunner position. Sergeant Koch had reported limited visibility from the standard tail position during his combat mission. Small windows, restricted view, difficult to track fighters approaching from 6 or low. The Army Air Forces contracted with the Cheyenne Modification Center in Wyoming to redesign the tail position. Larger windows, better visibility above and below, improved gun mounting, enhanced armor protection. They called it the Cheyenne tail. It became standard on late production B-7Gs. 3 innovations from a failed program: Chin turret, staggered waist guns, Cheyenne tail, all 3 incorporated into the B-7G, all 3 saving lives on every mission for the rest of the war. Captain James Hartwell flew 16 more missions in standard B-7Fs. He completed his 25-mission tour in October 1943, survived, went home to Pennsylvania, never flew a YB-40 again after that first St. Nazaire mission. But in December, he returned to Alsonbury as a training officer. The first B-7Gs were arriving. He watched crews walking around the new bombers, pointing at the Chin turret, asking how it worked, where it came from. Hartwell told them about the YB-40, the flying destroyer that couldn't keep up, the gunship that became the target, the 3-month program that failed so badly it got canceled before summer ended. Then he showed them the turret, explained how bombarders operated it, demonstrated the field of fire, walked them through the ammunition loading procedure. The crews listened carefully. They understood. The chin turret that would protect them came from an aircraft that failed, an expensive mistake that cost $5.6 million, a weapon system that survived only 3 months of combat testing. One pilot asked Hartwell if the YB-40 was worth it, worth the money, worth the effort, worth the crews who flew those 12 aircraft into combat, knowing they'd fall behind. Hartwell looked at the B-7G on the hard stand, the chin turret gleaming in the weak English sunlight. He thought about frontal attacks, about Focke-Wulfs diving through formations at 12 waist high, about bombarders who finally had a weapon that could stop them. He thought about the 8,680 bombers that would carry that turret before the war ended. Worth it, he said. Every mission, every dollar, every bullet hole in Hedgehog's fuselage. The YB-40 taught us how to fail forward. The last YB-40 mission flew on July 29, 1943. By August, the program was officially canceled. By November, all 12 surviving aircraft had returned to the United States. Most became trainers. A few were scrapped. One ended up in a scrapyard scene in the 1946 film, The Best Years of Our Lives. No YB-40 survived the war intact. No museums preserved them. No restoration projects brought them back. The flying destroyer disappeared from history. But the innovation lived everywhere. Every B-17S that flew over Europe, every bomber crew that survived a frontal attack, every pilot who made it to 25 missions because a Focke-Wulf broke off early when chin turret tracers found their target. The 8th Air Force flew more than 290,000 combat sorties with B-7Gs. The chin turret fired in anger on approximately 114,000 of those missions. Conservative estimates suggest it directly prevented 2,300 bomber losses. That's 23,000 crew members who came home. The National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton displays a B-7G, tail number 44835114, named Shoo 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 Baby. Restored to flying condition, the chin turret gleams under the museum lights. A plaque mentions it was standard equipment on all G models. The plaque doesn't mention the YB-40, doesn't explain where the turret came from, doesn't tell the story of 12 aircraft that failed so completely their program lasted 3 months. History remembers successes. The B-7G that helped win the war. The flying fortress that became an icon. The bomber that could take tremendous damage and bring crews home. History forgets failures. The YB-40 that couldn't keep up. The $5.6 million mistake. The flying destroyer that needed protection instead of providing it. But failures teach lessons successes never do. The YB-40 proved that good ideas poorly executed still contain good ideas. That expensive mistakes can generate priceless innovations. That 3 months of combat testing can produce improvements that last years. Boeing engineers didn't see the YB-40 as failure. They saw it as research. They took what worked and fixed what didn't. The chin turret worked. The extra weight didn't. So they kept the turret and dropped the weight. Simple, effective, life-saving. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about engineers and pilots and crews who turn failures into victories. Real innovation, real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching. And thank you for making sure the YB-40 crews don't disappear into silence. They failed spectacularly, but their failure saved thousands.